What's the deal with card games? We call them trading card games, but the only thing I'm trading is my mortgage to play a deck that'll be relevant for a month. Alright, enough of that bit. We all love a good joke, and so do card game designers apparently. Many card games make cards that are either purposefully bad, that no one would really ever use, or just have effects that are just weird that if they aren't a joke, I'd question what the design team is doing. Yu-Gi-Oh!, Pokemon, and many more have multiple joke cards. Hell, Magic has entire sets that are literally nothing but joke cards. Before I get to the video, let me tell you my favorite joke, and that's the fact you're not subscribed to this channel. But luckily you can scroll down below and fix that by clicking the subscribe button for plenty of more great videos. And that's not a joke. And hey, while you're down there, leave a comment about your favorite joke card and any other topics you might want me to cover like this. Anyways, obligatory plug out of the way, let's get to the good stuff. Let's start with everyone's favorite game where half the people who own the cards don't actually know how they work, Pokemon. Yes, this is an actual game and not something Twitch streamers open. It also has this Japanese dude. This is, and pardon if I pronounce this wrong, Tomoaki Imakuni. He did some songs for the Pokemon anime and even actually helped design some of the Pokemon Ranger games and did art for some other cards. For those of you who played the Pokemon trading card game on the Game Boy, you probably remember him as that weird dude who shows up at the clubs and makes the music sound all weird. And you may remember this card from the game, Imakuni? It's one of the only joke cards Pokemon really ever printed that you could actually play it once it released in Generations, since before it was just a Japanese promo card exclusively. All it does is make your active Pokemon confused. This makes it so you have to flip a coin to see if an attack will hit, and if it's tails, you just take 30 damage. The only way to fix this was to retreat it back to the bench, or have it be replaced by a different status effect. Is there an upside to confusing your own Pokemon? No, not really a little. There is pretty much no reason to play Imakuni. There are a few special cards released based around Imakuni, all done by Imakuni himself, such as Imakuni's Dudoro, that requires you to throw the card as hard as you can when it retreats because Dudoro is running away. Something like making you sing a song for 30 seconds before it does 30 damage, which for those of you who play Pokemon is not a lot. If you're curious on what's going on with Imakuni, he's actually still involved with the Pokemon TCG and has a moderately active Twitter account, albeit it's all Japanese. It also led me to this commercial, which I've never seen before, but it's pretty great. Pokemon doesn't actually really have that many joke cards. The Imakuni line is really the only set. There's plenty of weird card outs, like this one that's just a screenshot from Pokemon Snap, but that's another video in and of itself. So with Pokemon covered, let's hop over to Magic. Magic doesn't really do joke cards in most of the sets, and instead do special sets called unsets. These are cards that are mostly illegal to play in the actual game, with some exceptions with the recent Unfinity set. But these are mostly just silly effects. There have been a few jokes in flavor text or the art, and perhaps the most notable is Yoggle and Moltani. It's an absurd pairing of characters, but that's one that's kind of hard to explain to non-Magic players, but at least you can appreciate the flavor text that transcends Magic. As for other joke cards, you got cheap ass, badass, dumbass, fat ass, city of ass, smart ass, lot of ass cards. You also have Form of the Approach of the Second Sun that quite literally turns you into a card, with an effect based off of an actual card, Approach of the Second Sun. Form of the Approach of the Second Sun wins you the game if you draw it, but you have to balance the next 6 cards of your deck on top of your head, and if they fall, you stop being a card because the card makes you get sacrificed. A classic is Cheaty Face, which lets you quite literally cheat by just putting it onto the battlefield for free if no one notices you, and if no one calls you out, it gets to stay there as a creature. I'm going through these fast because, well, they're not legal, and I don't think it's as interesting as the actual legal joke cards. But with Infinity, some of these joke cards were deemed enough to be legal, and all legal in all Eternal formats. And the strangest of these is Exchange of Words, which makes you change the text boxes of 2 creatures for as long as it's on the battlefield. So you can pretty much change the effect of one of your bad creatures for a powerful effect an opponent controls. In some cases, this can just randomly shut down an opponent's deck. There are plenty more unset cards I could talk about, but the fact they're really only legal in their own formats makes it a bit less interesting to talk about, so let's move on. But you know what game has no shortage of joke cards? Yu-Gi-Oh! I can make an entire video on just Yu-Gi-Oh! Joke cards alone. And in fact, that's what the script started as originally, but I wanted to give some love to some other games. The joke cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! Go from stupid names with actually good effects to parodies of the most powerful cards and makes them terrible. Let's start with one of the more popular joke cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! Pot of Generosity, which is a joke that it's an inverse Pot of Greed. But how can you know that when I don't even know what Pot of Greed does? Anyways, Pot of Generosity's only effect is that you put 2 cards from your hand into your deck. This is the opposite of Pot of Greed, where instead of going +1 in card advantage, you get to go -3. What a bargain! Use this turn 1 and start off the duel with just 2 cards. Technically, this effect isn't entirely useless. You see, Yu-Gi-Oh! Has these things called Garnets. And these are cards that you want to be in your deck and never actually want to be in your hand. So technically, Pot of Generosity can be used to put a Garnet back in your deck. Of course, this is fucking terrible, and 99% of the time you'd rather just keep the card and just live with it. Because again, you go -3 in card advantage by using Pot of Generosity. But it's not meant to be a good card, and it's purposefully bad. Want to see another purposely bad card? No? Getting Cold Feet? Good, because I'm talking about Cold Feet. This is a card that when you use it, you can't activate, set, or use any effects of any spell trap cards this turn. It's also a quick play spell for some reason, in case you really want to use it at any point. This card is a riff on Cold Wave, which is a much more broken and banned card that prevents just any spell trap card from being set or played, but this affected your opponent as well, which is why it's good. Cold Feet, on the other hand, only hits you, and there's, well, pretty much no reason you would ever want to do this. There's no feasible circumstance where you would ever want to be playing Cold Feet. Unless you really want to be not playing backrow cards? Let's move outside of joke card effects and look at just a joke card that looks at sets itself. I'm talking about Tardy Orc. You see, in Yu-Gi-Oh!, like practically all card games, shows what set the card was released in, and a usually shortened set code. Order of Chaos was one of those sets, and the set code was Orcs. However, there were no Orc cards in that set, so the next set we saw Tardy Orc get released because it showed up late and missed the set that actually spelled out Orc. It's also a bad card that might have been okay in 2006, but they saw a joke and they wanted to make it. You've probably heard of Foolish Burial. It's one of the most popular Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards that kind of transcended the game. It's one of the best spell cards ever printed. But have you heard of Foolish Revival? Using it is foolish, alright, because all it does is have you special summon a monster from your opponent's graveyard in defense position on their field. This effect is already terrible, but to make it even worse, it's a trap card, so you have to wait a whole turn before you even are able to use the effect in the first place. Strangely enough, it's kind of more of a riff on Monster Reborn than it is on Foolish Burial, but hey, it is what it is. Another play on one of the best cards in the game is Humble Sentry. If you ever want to give your opponent all of your hidden information and then lose a card in your hand in the process, because now you can. This is a play on the banned card the Forceful Sentry, which pretty much has the opposite effect that forces your opponent to reveal their hand and you can shuffle a card back into the deck. Like Pot of Generosity, it can technically get a Garnet out of your hand, but this time you're only going -2 instead of 3. What a good card. Not actually, it's really bad. And now, a tasteful reading of Yu-Gi-Oh! Card names with JPEG. Anteater eating ant. Oops. Dr. Frankendip. Interplanetary purpley thorny dragon. Nefarious archfiend, eater of nefariousness. Sandwich, a fusion of Sangan and Witch of the Black Forest. People running about. That wacky magic. Mind Hacksaws. Totally awesome. And my personal favorite, Magical Something. This has been a tasteful reading of Yu-Gi-Oh! Joke cards names. Thank you for listening. And that seems like a good place to wrap up this video. Joke cards are a way for card designers to have a little more fun when it comes to card design, be it by making them just have silly effects, or to pay tribute to something much better with a card that's no longer with us because it's banned. Obviously, you can't include them all the time because cards need to, be good to make people want to buy a product, and no one's gonna really be opening it in like a draft or something like that. Granted, if it's a low rarity card, you probably won't gonna care that much anyways. And they are fun to see pop up every now and again, and I hope more games do continue to print more fun, silly cards like this more often. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, do make sure to drop it a like, comment below what your favorite joke card was, and what other topics you might be interested in seeing me cover that covers all card games. And make sure to click that subscribe button for more content like this. I've been JPEG. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.